Well, hi everybody, I'm Bill Whittle. Welcome to The Firewall. You know, watching the mainstream media coverage of the Tea Party takes work. It's real work. You need a pencil and a legal pad. You need sharp eyes and ears and TiVo so you can pause the commentary just to try to keep track of all the slanders and the unmitigated lies that have been directed against the Tea Party in order to delegitimize it. Obviously, we Tea Partiers are stupid, uneducated Neanderthals. We're white trash rednecks, knuckle-dragging proto-Nazis, KKK-loving violent extremists ready to execute anyone who does not bend a knee to our upcoming fundamentalist Christian theocracy. Oh, and we're domestic terrorists. They'll accuse us of being werewolves next, I reckon. One of those slanders leveled against the Tea Party movement is that it's anti-immigrant, but that's nonsense. The Tea Party is not anti-immigration. The Tea Party is anti-illegal immigration. For people with a shred of common sense, that should be all we have to say. But for those who may be just a little deficient in that precious commodity, let me elaborate just a little. First of all, why do people want to come to America? And everybody does. That's why we have this problem. Well, some come here fleeing lawlessness and political violence. Some come here for the freedom to start a new business. Some come here to be part of the idea of America. And some come here simply for the jobs. But all of these attractions, all of the things that drive people to risk their lives to come to America, have one thing in common, and it's important. They are all irreducibly founded on respect for the law. You see, it's the lawlessness and corruption of Mexico that causes people to flee. It's the extra-legal arrests and the property confiscation in Cuba, the murdering death squads throughout South America, the grinding poverty of Africa, the gloom and despondency of Russia and Eastern Europe, all of which is a result of lawlessness. But you do not flee from something only to bring it with you. Are you fleeing from a country where your property has been trespassed upon, and yet your first actions here are to trespass upon someone else's? Do you naturally enough flee from corruption and yet use corrupt people, using corrupt measures to bring you into this new sanctuary in order to help you escape? You do not have a moral right to flee lawlessness if your first actions in your new home are to break the law and to continue breaking it on a daily basis. Now, one reason we conservatives are against illegal immigration is because it undermines, you know what, actually, let's just call it what it is. It makes chumps out of honest, hard-working, and motivated legal immigrants who've spent their entire fortunes and years of their lives showing a respect and desire for their new home by filling out the forms, waiting in line, and, most impressively to me certainly, often serving in our nation's armed forces as a path to citizenship. And that goes for everyone who's willing to play by the rules and wait in line to pass a test most Americans could never pass and take an oath we've never been asked to take. I've often thought that we should have to swear in homegrown Americans in exactly the same way. Now, second, we're opposed to illegal immigration because what we are seeing now on our southern border is not what it was even 10 years ago. Men wandering across a line looking for work. What we're seeing now is not immigration. It's an armed invasion. Entire platoons of Mexican nationals armed with assault rifles nightly cross our border with impunity. They bring not only honest and desperate people looking for work, but also mountains of illegal drugs, and murderers, and rapists, and professional criminals of every stripe, and foreign nationals from places like Pakistan, Iran, and North Korea that speak neither English nor Spanish, and who, I suspect, may not have our very best interests at heart. Did you know that armed observation posts of heavily armed drug traffickers exist deep inside American territory, issuing threats against any American law enforcement that may come within range of their multi-billion-dollar enterprise? And the federal government's response? Let's just post signs advising American citizens that they are not free to travel within their own borders due to the presence of foreign armies on our soil. Oh, they also spend some time, energy, and money suing the state of Arizona for having the audacity to step up and protect their own citizens as Arizonans, since they cannot be defended in America as simply Americans. My friends, there is something very, very, very wrong in Washington, D.C. today. Oh, and parenthetically, for our high-toned moral betters, celebrities like Jessica Alba and Lady Gaga, who've come out so forcefully against other people defending their own property, I have a quick question for you. Where do you live? And you can't just answer California or New York. I want your street address. You see, I want to know exactly where you live. You know why? because I want to print that information on posters and plaster them all over the place. I want that poster to list your exact address and say that you disdain borders and fences and private property, that you believe in freedom of travel for all people, and that you think we should share with those less fortunate. And I want scores, or maybe hundreds, of homeless or otherwise indigent people to feel perfectly free to climb over your fence, to walk across your lawn, to smash some of your windows, to climb into your bedrooms, and to help themselves to what is in your refrigerators. Hopefully, they're just looking for food and won't murder or kidnap you like they do down in Arizona. You'll just have to take your chances there, since I'm sure that both of you are very strongly against owning guns. Now, third, Mexican racist groups like La Raza, which means the race La Raza is racism defined, assert that Mexicans have the legal right to all of the southwestern United States because it was taken by force and is therefore illegally obtained. Let's examine this argument just a little more fully. La Raza claims that all of Texas is in that category. Mexicans should be free to go into Texas with impunity because Texas really still belongs to them, to Mexico. Well, let's stand well north of the current border. Let's stand outside of Lubbock, Texas, and see who we need to give this land back to. You see, America wouldn't return Texas to Mexico. We would return it to the Confederacy. We took it by force and therefore illegally, according to this logic. But obviously, the Confederacy is gone. So we should then have to return it to its rightful owners, which is the Republic of Texas. The Texans would then have to give it back to Mexico since they took it from them by force. So Mexico has it. But then, of course, La Raza, being people of integrity, will demonstrate in the streets in order to give Texas back to Spain, since the Mexicans took it from them by force. Spain will then have to give it back to France, naturally enough, since Spain took it from France by force, and the French can just hand it right back since they took it from Spain by force to begin with. So Lubbock belongs to Spain, who took it by force from the Comanches. Give Texas to the Comanches then, we've got it solved. Only the Comanches took it by force from the Apaches. The provenance of Texas gets a little dicey here since no one knew how to write before that time, but we do know that the Apaches pinched this land from the ancient Pueblo people, who hijacked it from the First View people, who captured it from the Plainview people, who conquered it from the Folsom people, who snatched it from Clovis Man, who arrived on what is now downtown Lubbock, Texas, USA, about 11,000 years ago. Now, since all of these owners took that patch of land more or less by force, no one owner is in any position of moral superiority. Yes, it was taken from them, but they took it from someone else. There are only two people on that timeline with a unique claim: the people who had it first, Clovis Man, and the people who have it now, us, America. You know, up until very recently, people's hearts came to America before their heads and their hands did. Like so many of today's legal immigrants, they had a burning desire not to feed off of America's economy, but to become Americans. In the waves of immigration of the 18th, 19th, and 20th centuries, immigrants insisted that their children speak English, that they dressed and acted like Americans, and like those valiant Japanese Americans or Black Tuskegee Airmen who fought with unsurpassed valor in Germany in World War II, they were determined to prove to themselves and to others that they were a part of us. All of us, up until the present, either came to America or are descended from people who came to America, not just to find work, but to become new people, reinvented, cut from clean cloth, none better than another, e pluribus unum, out of many, one, here, in the land of the free and the home of the brave. One new people, welded together from elements of 1,000 existing peoples, a melting pot, a crucible to reforge us all, free of our old world dogmas and hatreds and vendettas. We're more than a salad or a mosaic of 1,000 tribes simply fighting over a new piece of dirt. That's not America. So, when certain so-called leaders tell us that we are not one people, but rather a collection of privileged ethnic groups, each with its own set of grievances and each entitled to something that belongs to someone else, remember, it is those people, rather than the Tea Partiers, who are the actual racists in America today. My friends, producing these messages costs money. To keep them free, will you go to declarationentertainment.com and consider becoming a citizen producer? $9.95 of your hard-earned money each month keeps the wheel turning. I'm Bill Whittle. We'll see you next time on The Firewall.